cell membrane and movement across them. So we're going to be talking about what the cell membrane is, what it's made out of, and cell transport, how things move in and out of the cell. So first, cell membrane is also called the plasma membrane. The cell needs an inside and outside. So separating the cell from its environment is extremely important. This is what the cell membrane does. Cell membrane is the boundary. It's like skin. Okay. So as you point to it, this is our inside. Food, sugars, proteins, fats, salts, oxygen, water. All right. Then we have our outside. Waste, ammonia, which is also the same thing that can be found in your pee and your waste. Salts, carbon dioxide, and so on. So cell membranes needs material in and products or waste out. So building a membrane. How do you build a membrane that keeps the watery contents, water, H2O, polar molecule, think, contents of the cell separate from this watery environment? So how do you keep water away from water? What can be in between water and not mix with water? Take a second. If you think about it, you probably already know we've talked about it before. I give you a hint, it's one of those macromolecules. So, what substance do you know that doesn't mix with water? Think about it. What doesn't mix? So, fats, lipids. Remember, oils and water don't mix. So, our cell membrane is mainly made out of fat and oil. Wow, fat is good for you in small amounts. So, lipids of the cell membrane. You must understand that these membranes is made of a special kind of lipid. It's not just lipids, fats by itself. It is called a phospholipid because it has a split personality. It likes water and it hates water. So it has that phosphate, which is water loving, and then we have a lipid, which is water fearing. So the phosphate is attracted to water, whereas the lipid is repelled by water. All right, so the membrane is a double layer. Why? Because this phospholipid bilayer, two layers, has the phosphates that like water. So you have the inside and outside, which are both made of water. So you need the heads to point to the water. Then you have the lipid middle part. The meat of the entire cell membrane is lipid, which keeps water from actually passing through that membrane. So it's also called semi-permeable. What do you think semi mean? Semi means some. Permeable means pass. So some things can pass the cell membrane. So cell membrane controls what gets in and gets out. Needs to allow some materials in because without it coming in, some things like food and stuff, cells will die. So it needs some things to actually be able to get into the cell, but not all. So semi-permeable, only some items can get through. So what needs to get across the cell membrane? Think about it. Think about it. What does it need? Sugar, which is our food. Lipids, because it's mainly made of lipids, so lipids can actually go through. Ammonia, AA, because you need to get that out. Oxygen, because it's small. And then water needs to get through too, right? But now hold up, time out. This is the hey, you just said water can't go through. Now we're going to start getting to that cell transport, right? So some of these things need to go through the cell membrane, but how does it get through if it can't just go through it? Like I can't walk through a wall, but I need to get outside. All right, salts and so on. So crossing the cell membrane. What molecule can get through the cell membrane directly? So out of those we just said, what can go right through a phospholipid bilayer? Well, fats and oils can pass through directly because the cell membrane is mainly made out of fat and oil. What else? Sugar's too big, can't go through. Ammonia's too big, can't get through. Amino acids, sorry, protein. Water definitely can't get through because it's polar molecule versus non-polar. Salt can't get through because it's ionized. Salt has a charge. And definitely waste because waste is very large as well. So that doesn't work. So what things that can't go directly through the cell membrane, which are the small, non-polar, uncharged molecules, very important. Those three things, make sure you write that down somewhere. But the three things that can get through the cell membrane are either non-polar, like a lipid, small, like oxygen, tiny, can get right through, or uncharged, which is still non-polar, just meaning it's not a polar molecule. So make sure you have those three things written down because you will see that again. But you still need to get some of that stuff in. Like, I mean, water's important. It's big and it's charged. So how do you get it in? Well, you need to make doors or just protein channels. So these protein channels allow substances in and out that normally can't go directly through the cell membrane. Specific channels allow specific material in. That's very important. It's in red, so write that down. Specific channels allow specific things inside. It's not like a regular door that just lets anything in. It's like a special door. Only you can come in through that door. All right. So we have water channels, salt channels, sugar channels, etc. So sugar goes to the sugar channel. I need that energy. Proteins, I need to build my muscle up, build up the different structures inside the cell. Water, because without water you dead. Salt, because that's extremely important to help your muscles and everything else works. And then waste, you need to get that out. So, what is the cell membrane made out of? Think about it. We should be able to answer that question. How do substances get in and out the cell? So there's two ways, right? Let's see what they are. So first, what is it made out of? Phospholipid bilayer, proteins and cholesterol. Now, I might not have told you cholesterol, but cholesterol acts as kind of like a glue, right? We got all this fat and lipids floating around, but we have cholesterol that kind of helps stick things together. This is why it's bad when it's in your blood vessels, can cause heart attack and stroke. Because cholesterol is sticky. It helps stick the cell membrane together. It's like a glue, all right? And then obviously proteins for the protein channels, and then the cell membrane is mainly made out of a phospholipid bilayer. Protein channels and diffusion. What is diffusion? Diffusion is moving across the cell membrane directly, and protein channels are those doors that allow specific things to get through. Okay. So how do you build a semi-permeable cell membrane? So how do you build something that allows some things in and other things no? Well, channels are made of proteins. So channels, remember, are like doors that something's in and not others. Proteins both like water and like lipids. Proteins are one of those few substances that's like, hey, I don't care. All y'all good. I like water. I like polar. I like non-polar. I'm all good. All right. And so you have these different proteins embedded within the cell membrane, and these different channels allow for certain things to get in. So protein channels in the bilayer membrane is a great way to allow some things in and not others. So protein channels act as doors in the membrane, channels to move specific molecules through the cell membrane. Think about it. Each transport protein is specific as to the substance that it will translocate or move. For example, the glucose transport protein in the liver will carry glucose from the blood to the cytoplasm, but not fructose. It's a structural isomer. What it means is it has to be glucose, which is a little bit smaller than fructose. Both of them are sugars, but only glucose can go through. And guess what you need as a human being? You need glucose. So some transport proteins are hydrophilic, which means I like water channel, that certain molecules or ions can use as a tunnel through the membrane, simply providing corridors allowing a specific molecule or ion to cross the membrane. Big words, just saying, hey, it's a door to let some things in and lock other things out. All right. All right, and this is an example of that channel letting some things in and not everything in. All right. So what is diffusion? When you have a lot of something, it moves from a high concentration to a low concentration. A good way to always think about it is think of it like a hill, right? If I go all the way to the top of the hill and I let a ball go, is it going to go higher up the hill or is it going to roll down the hill? It rolls down the hill. This is exactly what diffusion is. When you have a lot of something in one area, it rolls down the hill to the other way. Put it this way. Have you ever opened a door, right? You was coming in, there was a whole bunch of cold air inside, and it was hot outside, and you open it, that cold air flows out and hits you in the face. Well, that's exactly what it is. It's diffusion of the cold air. A lot of cold air inside. You open a door, you allow it to come out to where it's not a lot of cold air, and it's going to flow in and hit you in the face because it's moving from a high concentration to a low concentration. It's going down the hill. This is called a concentration gradient, or I call it the concentration hill. High to low. Put a ball on top, it rolls to the bottom. So moving through the channels. Why do molecules move through membranes if you give them a channel? The hill. What part of the hill? It goes from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, or the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill? High to low or low to high? High to low. From the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. All right? This is how you get things to move across the cell membrane without using any kind of energy. It just does it by itself. All right? So diffusion. A move from high to low concentration. Write that down. That's very important. So if you look at here, you have molecules of dye and you have a membrane that's blocking it inside of water. And by itself, it moves from a lot of molecules of dye to a low number of molecules of dye. It's equal. So it keeps doing this until it's equal. Right? So diffusion is moving from high to low concentration, as you can see in this illustration. So it moves from a small concentrated amount until it's even across. This is why if you go outer space, there's nothing in outer space, but you got a whole bunch of stuff in you. This is why you die. Literally, your body diffuses every molecule in your body to outer space. That's why you blow up really big and it tries to bust out of your body and spread out across the entire universe and rips you apart. Not fun. So this is called passive transport. Why is it called passive? Because there's no energy that's required. It's just free energy. It does it by itself. No energy needed, right? You put a ball at the top of the hill and you just let it go. It'll roll. You don't have to pull it down the hill. So diffusion is any molecule. But what happens when you do it with water? We give it a different name called osmosis. So water can diffuse across membranes as well, but we just give it a different name because it's water. It's called osmosis. But with any other molecule, we call it diffusion. Okay? Remember, diffusion is high to low, no energy required, high part of the hill to the bottom part, and we call it passive. All right, so simple diffusion. Simple diffusion is exactly what we just said. Which way will the fat move? Well, we got 3 at the top and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at the bottom. Well, high to low, we got a lot at the bottom, a higher concentration, a low amount at the top. So I'm guessing it's going to move from bottom to the top. Exactly. And this goes until we reach an equal amount or close to equal. So high to low. So now there's another type of diffusion, facilitated diffusion. Well, this is just the same thing as diffusion, but you have to go through a channel. It has to be facilitated. Something has to carry it across, right? Because it can't go through the cell membrane because they're too big. Sugar can't make it. So it goes through a channel instead. So simple diffusion can go through the cell membrane. Facilitated has to go through a channel. So diffusion moves from high to low concentration directly through the cell membrane. This is simple diffusion. No energy needed. You can help this through a protein channel, but that changes the name from diffusion to, can't see my screen right now, facilitate diffusion with help. All right, no energy needed. All right, same thing. And it has to go through a protein. So simple versus facilitated. So simple, directly through the cell membrane. Facilitated goes through the protein channel. Okay, active transport. Now we're changing things up, right? So we're looking at this illustration here. You see it goes into the little protein channel, but it actually has to click open and click close. Well, this requires energy because you're going against the hill. Think of it. I told you high to low, right? It goes to the top of the hill and then it rolls down the hill from the high point to the low point. No energy to do that. But if you're going to take that ball up the hill, you can't just let it go. You have to pick it up, carry it, and use energy to go up against that hill. So you're going from a low, the bottom of the hill, up against to the top of the hill that's high. That requires energy. Imagine trying to push a car up a hill. You're going to require a lot of energy. But if you want to go down the hill, just take off the brake. It's going to go rolling. So you need to pump uphill. So these are called protein pumps. All right. So it goes from low to high. You're going up against the hill from the bottom to the top. Proteins. Think about it like this in life, right? They said, made it from the bottom, now I'm here. Made it from the bottom, now I'm here. It wasn't easy. You had to work to get there. It's the same thing here. You have to work to get from low to high. It's easy to fall from the top. You got a lot of money, somebody rob you, you can lose that really quick. But if you try and get to the top, you got to work your behind off, make a little bit of money, find something that people want to sell that, make it better, right? So these protein pumps is kind of like, they're working. I'm trying to pull this over across. I'm trying to get more, all right? Because I don't have the amount that I really want. I want more than what I already have, right? So I got to get more. So I got to pull it. This requires energy, ATP. Remember, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, it is the energy molecule for all things. ATP. Okay? Remember, ATP is made by the mitochondria. Energy. Okay? So let's see the different transports we have. We have high to low going through the cell membrane. This is passive transport. Can you remember the name of it? Yeah, simple diffusion. Okay, we have high to low going through a protein channel. This is passive transport. Can you remember the name of it? Facilitated diffusion. Okay, we have low going up against the hill high using energy. This is active transport, and this is requires energy. Okay, so passive transport, no energy. Active transport, energy. Passive, like I'm just chilling. Active, I gotta do some work. Gotta get active. ATP. Okay, osmosis, movement of water across the membrane. So now we've been talking about moving regular molecules, right? But now we're going to talk about water. Well, osmosis is the movement of that water. So water is very important. So we talk about water separately. Osmosis, a diffusion of water from high concentration of water to low concentration of water. Time out. Wait a second, Mr. DeHaty. So water moves from high to low. What does that mean? Is it active? Requires energy going up the hill? Or is it passive, starting at the top of the hill and rolling down to the bottom, high to low? It's passive, high to low. All right, across the semi-permeable membrane, understand there are three types of things that we have to worry about when we talk about the survival of cells when it comes to water, right? Because too much water can blow things up. So cell survival depends on balancing water uptake and water loss. The first one we have here is when water moves into a cell, it can lyse or rip. Or in a plant cell, because they have a wall to protect them, they become very rigid. If you've ever ate celery, the reason why they're so hard like that is because they're full of water. Then you have a normal cell where it just moves in at the same rate as it moves out. And that's what you want to be. You want that equilibrium. Okay, and then you have another one where it shrivels up. You ever been in the ocean? The water comes out of your body and goes into the ocean. There's so much salt around you, different percentages. So your body loses water and it shrinks. Plants can do this too, but their cell wall gives them a little bit of structure, and so they don't really lose too much shape. Have you ever had celery that's kind of soggy? Yeah, that's exactly what happens. All right, so fresh water, because it's a fresh, all 100% water, is going to move into the cell. High amount of water, because 100% water outside, and it's not 100% water inside the cell. So high to low goes into the cell. Salt water, low percent of water, because there's a lot more salt in the water, so you have a lower percentage water, and so the water inside your cell is probably higher, and so it's going to move out of you and go into the salt water. And then you have balance, which is equilibrium. And there's a name for each one of these, and we're about to talk about it right now. So first, fresh water. A cell in fresh water has a higher concentration on the water around it. So 100% water on the outside, 50% water on the inside. Well, 100 is higher than 50, so water is going to move from high to low. So that 100% is going to move into the cell from 50%. And that can cause cell gains water. Example, paramecium. Problem, cell gains water, swells, and can burst. And if you blow up, you're dead. That's not good. All right, water continuously enters the paramecium cell, and solution contrail vacuole. So remember, vacuoles store water, right? So these vacuoles can kind of hold some of that excess water to keep the cell from actually popping and dying. Right? This is why vacuoles are so important, because they store extra water. All right. So they can also pump water out of the cell when you get them into the vacuoles that store them. When you get too much, and they say, "Hey, active transport, high, moving it from low to high because I'm trying to get it out. I want that more anymore." All right, no problem. Kaboom. All right, so controlling water. So these vacuoles, as you can see, you have this one here at the top, and then you have down here where it has these other vacuoles that's been squished to push it out. All right, kind of hard to see, but if you're looking at the top, you see a big old giant vacuole in the middle, and then down at the bottom, you see it gets been squished to push the water out. All right, keeping the right amount. So salt water. A cell in salt water is going to shrink because guess what? The salt water might be 50% water, and inside the cell might be like 75% water. Wait a second. Outside is 50. That's lower than 75. Well, we're going to move for, against those different concentrations, right? So, well, I'm sorry, I'm saying it backwards. 50% water, and then if it's 25% water, sorry, 75% water, I'm messed up. Give me 1 second, I'm messing up. 75% water inside the cell, 50% water outside the cell. Well, 75 is bigger than 50. The water is going to move out of the cell into the salt water because you have a higher percentage of water inside the cell, and so the cell is going to get smaller. So if I go into the ocean, the giant ocean, that junk is like 60% water, but my body is like 70 to 80% water. Well, my body has more water percentage wise than the ocean. So the ocean is gonna rip the water out of my body because of osmosis. Same thing, salt water, and I'm gonna shrivel up. That's why when you go into the pool, your hands get all wrinkly and stuff. Part of the reason. There's other reasons too, where it actually helps us grit. But one of the reasons why you lose water, you get thirsty when you come out, is because you lose water through this process. So lower concentration of water around the cell loses water. Example, shellfish, problem, cell loses water. In plants, this is called plasmosis. And animal cell is the shrinking of the cell, shrivels. And solution, you take up water, you gotta drink some more. I will survive. I'm shrinking. Okay? So keeping the right amount of water. Almost done. So we gotta keep it balanced. So no difference in concentration of water between cells and the environment is even. Cell is equilibrium. Okay, so when we're thinking about that equilibrium, when you got an equal coming in, equal coming out, this is like your blood, right? Your blood has an equal amount along with the red blood cells, because you want to keep that equal amount inside the fluid around your blood. I don't want to mess you up and give you too many big words, but it's the extracellular tissue. But don't worry about that. All right, and then problems, there's none because it's equal. You're perfect. You're exactly what you want to be. All right, water flows across cell membrane equally in both directions. You got 50 going in, 50 coming out. Pretty equal. Good. All right, volumes of cell doesn't change because you have an equal amount. Yeah, that's better. Ooh, I could be better. All right. And so this one has ice fishing in the barrels. You can't really quite see it. Don't worry about it. All I want you to do now is those three situations I just gave you. I'm going to tell you the three words. Hypotonic. That's with an O. Hypotonic. Hypertonic with the ER. Hypertonic. And then isotonic. I want you to find those three words anywhere you can find them and put them to the right situation. And give me an example. So hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. Find those words. Those are vocabulary terms you will see again on BioBlitz, okay? So what I want you to do is find those three terms, put them to the right definitions that we just learned, find an example of it, okay?